Welcome to Show Studio's live panel discussions. In these discussions, experts from all parts of the industry discuss and debate the most important Fashion Week shows of the season. Today, in the midst of Milan Fashion Week, we're going to be discussing Versace Spring-Summer 2022 women's wear. And we've got a really great panel of hosts with us today. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, tell us where you're dialing in from. And also I thought we could start by just saying how you think the word Versace should be pronounced. So I'll start on my left with Philip.
So let's start off with how it should be pronounced. I would say Versace.
Okay.
And I'm a writer, also a commentator, and have written for the likes of Katie Grant's Perfect. Also currently holding the position of deputy editor at Odder magazine. And I'm based in London. Great.
Natalie?
I'll also start off with how I think it's going to be pronounced. I definitely think it's Versace.
Versace, okay.
I like the word. It does something to my ears. Well, I'm currently an advisor to a couple of young direct-to-consumer brands. I used to be a buyer for Matches Fashion and My Theresa. And yeah, I'm still into fashion, but in a different way now.
And Violetta?
Hi, I am a stylist and I am currently in London, and I think Versace should be pronounced Versace.
Versace. Okay, so we've got a few different answers here, but say it however you want for this discussion. And let's get started. So the show was last night. Did you guys watch it live? When did you guys watch it?
I watched it this morning.
Me too.
Okay. I watched it live. I watched it the moment it happened because I was very keen to see what Donatella had done with the show and with the collection compared to Fall Winter. And obviously, I think a lot of us are aware of the fact that was it last night or the day previous, Versace announced that they're going to do something with Fendi.
Yeah.
Which quite excited me. I was keen to see whether there's going to be anything happening sort of in this space, whether that's going to be present in any way, and whether it'll overshadow the show, but it actually did not. So
And anyone else have anything to say about their initial kind of thoughts on the show whilst watching it?
I feel like you could see the Versace DNA was definitely shone through, but she gave it to us in a bright, new, fruity, modern way, which was lovely to see.
Absolutely. And Natalie?
Yeah, I think fruity is really a good word to explain it. The colors are really nice. I think the colors were most surprising to me because it started off with black again.
Well, she always seems to have the bookends of black, and in the middle, it's sort of, that's where the color sort of explodes. But I think what was interesting is that from the very beginning, even in the black sections, you had these slashes where, the colors were almost emerging, so you knew what was to come. And then obviously in the middle, there was this, this crazy pop of fluorescence and shiny. I mean, do you guys think it was, I haven't looked properly, but I didn't know whether it was latex or PVC, that sort of shiny.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of,
I think there was some chainmail in there as well, I saw.
Exactly. It was everything we expect from a Versace show. It was
definitely
sickly and seductive, and that really showed in the fabrics, especially. One thing I want to touch on as well is obviously Donatella's known for Versace is known for their casting and almost being the trailblazer for the whole supermodel fad. What did you guys think of the casting? Did it disappoint? Did it live up to its expectations?
In terms of casting, I was actually, when I saw Dua open the show, it made me think about how Gianni Versace revolutionized Versace in late 80s, early 90s by being very selective in the way he put the right faces in the right places, so to speak.
Yeah.
And where this was almost a, let's say, homage to Gianni's marketing genius, where Dua both opened the show, and obviously then you had Naomi in the middle, which made you think, well, since she's in the middle, what's saved for the very end? And then Dua closing it again was very much an iconic fashion moment, in the same way as Versace has done with the Jennifer Lopez jungle dress, and obviously Liz Hurley with a pin dress in 98. So it was, in a way, it was expected, but you didn't know what or how. It was definitely a journey. It was definitely a journey, which really had, it was, there was an arch. There was an arch. It was clearly defined. There was a red line throughout the show.
I think
sorry, Lily. No, I just wanted to say, I think Donatella really has a talent for capturing like the right people for the right moment.
Absolutely. I mean, even though Dua was obviously the face of the last campaign, I still think it was kind of unexpected to see her in the next show. And obviously the whole show was sort of all about her, because it was her music playing from start to finish. She obviously opened and closed. So she really played on, Dua being the face of the brand, and kind of continued that into this season. And I think it was a very smart move, because obviously Dua has a huge following, like absolutely huge. And maybe some of her fans are these, younger people that maybe don't know so much about Versace. Maybe, it's a way for Donatella to sort of introduce these younger people into the brand. And one thing I found about the show is that it was very 100% Versace, seal that, put a tick on it and send it off. It was just Versace through and through. And I guess maybe perhaps in previous shows, the themes were a lot more sort of obvious. I didn't see this show as having so much of a theme, but just being an overall Versace spectacle. The details of its rich history, such as the pins and the foulards and all those little details that just, tie a big ribbon on the entire Versace brand and say, this is who we are, and this is what we're selling. And I think she did that really well, and it translated really well.
Well, it seemed very fun, whimsical, and frivolous in its own way, whilst adding this very subtle, elegant touch of sexiness to it. And I think we have discussed about this offline previously quite a lot, where one thing we've been really deprived of in fashion over the, during pre-pandemic times was the sexiness. Fashion was becoming very serious in a way for a very long time. And this was almost paring back to then making it fun again, seeing that we are able to do this. We want to have fun. We are emerging from the pandemic into this new post-pandemic world, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean,
liberating and freeing at the very same time.
But I will say that, most Versace collections do have that sense of freedom, sexiness, skimpiness with the legs, bits of skin on show. And, maybe 90% of the time it feels that way. I do think sometimes Donatella has gone a little bit off track, maybe been a bit too influenced by the streetwear trends, where a lot of the women's wear starts to get a little bit more loose fitting and not so synonymous with the brand ethos. But this one, I mean, as I said, it has Versace written all over it. So I think it's a great show. And yeah, maybe we can go into a few more details. We've touched on Dua, maybe the styling, because I always find that quite an interesting point of view. Maybe Violetta, you have something to say, what you think about the styling?
I mean, I feel like this show is very hyper feminine, and I feel like the clothes are not very forgiving. They're quite I want the whole collection, but I feel like you need the body for this. You need the body, the Versace body, to pull off all of these clothes. But when you wear it, you'll feel so powerful. She has this once you put that outfit on, you'll feel like a superhero. And I felt like there was a lot of those block colors that shone through a lot for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that
It's very bold.
It's interesting that you touch on the Versace body, because we're going back to casting, she obviously has a very, I wouldn't say narrow vision, but she has a very particular vision of who she typically casts in her shows. And this season, we did see a curvy model, and I was wondering if you have any thoughts on that, because personally speaking, I find it very sort of not odd, but just, there's something that doesn't quite sit right that there was only one. I mean, what is it? Does that almost make it seem like it's more of a let's tick that box, we've done what we're supposed to do sort of thing? It's great that she wants to introduce the brand for all body types, as it should be, but by including one model, is that saying enough, or should she be doing more to get her point across?
I found it very interesting as well to see this one curvy model, and not even like plus size, just a little bit curvy. And I think there was also Madonna's daughter, right, in the show.
Lola Leon was in it as well.
Leon. And she's not curvy, but that was like a bit weird, like seeing this one curvy and then like Lourdes, who is not curvy but also not skinny. But yeah, it's good at least that she tries to integrate more curvy people, I guess.
We've been seeing it a lot more in general, but it's just, I don't know whether you think just showing it on one model is enough, and whether that's sort of going in the right direction, or...
I think, when you look at the way, for example, let's use Area as an example from New York, and how they do it in comparison then to how this was done. It does seem that Versace is trying to sort of democratize its fashion range across the board, as it should, but at the same time that it didn't come as organic or natural in a way, where it seemed that, yes, Precious Lee has walked so many amazing shows for so many big brands that they chose her over, actually then casting a whole variety of different body types in instead. Maybe it's because we associate Versace as these, the male Versace model used to be this Adonis that was greased and oiled up and, muscly and not one blemish. And obviously how the trends of casting has changed, and menswear is now a lot more about the, petite, thin, sort of like gaunt, maybe almost slightly grungy look, especially with Versace. I feel like the menswear casting, although it's still sexy, it's a very kind of modern idea of sexy, as opposed to how they used to cast with these beefy men. So I do think that when speaking about casting with brands, a brand like Versace, as I said, really does know its cast and knows who it wants to model, who it wants to wear the clothes. So seeing someone outside that body type that we may not be used to, maybe that might be a reason why it feels slightly less authentic. Just a food for thought.
that could very well be, because I think it's really because we are used to seeing a different body type from her.
Exactly. Should we talk about the set? I don't know if you guys watched the video.
A couple of the Adonises at the side.
Yes.
Exactly. I
Yes,
mean,
they created the air fan effect towards the end of the show, where you could see the oiled bodies and you could see every inch of their body sort of going up and down. So it was still there. It was still there, but not on a catwalk.
She still managed to incorporate that. And, normally her shows don't have as much of that. But the fact that there were, I don't know, 10 of these oiled up, muscly men pulling these ropes, I think that was probably a subtle nod to the old Versace. And it was just very interesting because it just made the whole thing so much more dynamic, that there was this movement going above the catwalk. And it felt like you were much more engaged within the space rather than just having screens or something like that. It makes you feel very much like you're there in the present. And maybe that was intentional because obviously the past year and a half has been so much more, digitalized and it's nice for people to be an actual show. Maybe she kind of played on that and wanted for people to really engage with their surroundings and feel every sort of sense. Maybe they could feel the wind from these giant silk sheets. So I thought that was a really clever approach to the set design, because other than that, I guess it was quite simple. You had these amazing, draped curtains that the models were walking through, but usually I would say her sets are more elaborate. This was sort of stripped back, but I guess stripped back in the right ways. Would you agree?
I think here the clothes took the center stage, so to speak, because there's such a great variety of what was it offering. Starting from Dua's first look with this tiny slit on the waist, the way the jackets and the skirts were constructed together, were held together throughout the show, where you saw this sort of interaction between pins and buttons, creating symmetrical lines that really let the colors pop up in their own way and pop out at the same time. So I think the set was vivid enough, but also subtle enough to not take away from the clothes themselves.
And the material on the clothes, the way that the chainmail, it all looks like water, and the air on the top, it kind of reflects that and gives off the same emotion.
Absolutely. Should we go into the nitty gritty and maybe start looking at specific looks, and maybe you guys can tell us what your kind of standout looks were? Should we go around the room, the digital room, and start with Philip? Was there any that you liked?
One of the standout looks was probably Naomi's suit, and most of the suits that were in the show, because you could see the amount of tailoring and the way it was cut across the board, where you see the massive wide lapels, the way this trousers flowed through. It was just so immaculately done. You couldn't just, it's not because it's just on Naomi, which is obviously part of the allure, but it's also because it's so well cut and it's sat on her so well that you couldn't take your eyes off it.
Yeah,
I really loved, I think it was towards the very end, Mika Arganyaraz's suit, which had the La Greca sort of pattern going around and was pinned from the side to lift it up. It was just slightly longer suit. I think it was look, out of memory, 76 or something like that. And it was just phenomenal. It was so incredibly, that's the one. It was so incredibly elegant, very simple, incredibly elegant, but at the same time, very Versace.
Yes.
Very Versace. The monochrome looks, oh my God, there was one monochrome look, I can't remember who it was on, could have been one or two God, that had this auburn bronze long dress. It was a auburn bronze long dress with a equally auburn bronze choker, really thin choker around her neck. And you could see the flow of the dress, which is absolutely phenomenal. I think it was also towards the end. It's one of those where when you saw it, you just had to stop for a second and rewatch it again and rewatch it again and again and again, because that's the one. I think the flow of the dress is remarkable. The way it flows, and going to what Violetta said earlier, that it's as if it's water and air going through. I mean, that is a signature Versace sort of fabric, the metal mesh that, just looks so beautiful. And as you said, ripples like water. So it's nice that, that was included in this collection. Natalie, did you have any favorite?
Yeah, I think the latex, I don't know if it's what it is, but it looks like latex. That was, again, like even that looked like water. Yeah. Which is beautiful. Especially the blue dress, 39, look 39 that was fantastic. It seems like latex is sort of not making a comeback, but it's been quite prominent in a few shows. I know that obviously Saint Laurent did it, Balmain did it. It's sort of making its way through the powerhouses, which I find interesting, because it's not such a typical fabric that most people would consider wearing. So very true. You have to prepare to wear latex, that's for sure. It's not easy to get into, and trust me, I know from experience. So. How about you, Violetta? Were there any kind of standout looks for you?
I might say something a bit blasphemous.
Okay, go for it.
I feel like I loved all the looks. I love the chainmail, as you could tell, and the colours. But the scarf, the Versace scarf print on some of the suits, that I just feel like I would have steered away from that a little bit. It's not really my thing personally. I feel like I liked the more kind of blocky colors and the dresses and the suits. Yeah. And I'm just not a Versace. I feel like the scarf print is done now a little bit for me. I mean, Versace. It's not bad to say that.
Well, it's a brand that's obviously famous for its prints, and what I liked to see was that although there were prints, I also really liked the block colors as well, which is obviously very Versace as well. So it was kind of a nice balance of both. It didn't feel like you were getting.
But sometimes it went a bit too. Sometimes it went a bit. I love this look here, but yeah, it went it's not my fit. The scarf is. I love the tailoring more than the print sometimes for me.
That's a gorgeous look as well. I really love the way in this collection you could see the blacks being contrasted by color, whilst it's a very traditional Versace look. I love the way she used colors in this collection to really create that almost synergy between colors. It wasn't so too much or too little. It was just the right amount, where you saw, for example, especially with menswear, what really came up for me was the fact that she had these very peachy knitted tops for men underneath the varsity jackets. And I absolutely, as you can see, I adore knits. I absolutely adore knits. So seeing something like that in different colors and then layering it underneath something so mundane such as a varsity jacket. I think this is actually first Versace varsity jacket, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to actually touch on that, because there was a section with big nods to American varsity and the specific color as well. Do you feel like that fitted in with the rest of the collection, or do you do you think it was just a little bit of a random injection midway?
What's really interesting about it is that I actually feel that it cascaded in nicely because it sort of came in through at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then it just sort of sagged away. It didn't stick out in any way. It was like, oh, this is because it came after, I think, the purple suits for men.
Yeah.
And you could see the colors sort of just move across in a very seamless manner. And then the collection just moved on from there. So it wasn't something that would stick out in a way. Yes, what I thought is that it was an unusual thing to do, but it didn't stick out in a bad way.
I guess it's sort of like the transition from the black into the fluorescent colors. Yeah, I was a bit unsure about that part, not because I didn't necessarily like it, but I was maybe questioning where it fitted in with the rest of the collection. Because usually I find that her collections have a lot more of a flow. Well, there's different sections and they're saying different things, but there seems to be some sort of connection throughout. And maybe this one, if I had to say anything negative, maybe the fact that it did seem a little bit disjointed. Not that there's a problem with that, but the flow maybe wasn't quite.
With the menswear and the women's wear?
Just in general, the menswear and the women's wear together, but the actual sort of story that she was telling from beginning to end. And maybe it's because I know I said that this seemed a lot more like an overview of the Versace brand rather than let's choose a theme, let's choose the nautical theme, let's choose the jungle theme and stick with that. It did seem a lot more sort of picking pieces from the history and the archive and the you know, the many references that you have to play with and kind of wrapping them in one big sort of box of Versace. So maybe that's why I feel it's a little bit disjointed, but again, it's not a negative, it's just an observation, I guess. And as we all know, the safety pins were iconic with Liz Hurley's slit dress on the red carpet, which was, you know, a really nice way to get that back in there in a fun way, because, you know, it just seemed like a younger take on it because of the colors that were used. And, you know, anyone that looks at that knows that that is a Versace gown.
Yeah.
And I guess it's important to engage with a younger audience, again, that may not know about this look or any other, you know, the J-Lo jungle dress that essentially made Google Images. What was smart about doing that again with J-Lo is that, again, the younger audience became engaged with the history of the brand and how much impact it had on pop culture. And that's something that Versace has always been good at, you know, its sort of relationship with pop culture and defining moments for people to, you know, be obsessed with and to share. And in a digital age now where social media is everything, she never fails to create those shareable moments. I'm not sure who it was that said before the call, but apparently, you know, social media was blowing up with Dua Lipa all over the internet because, you know, she's huge and she's got a massive following.
What's interesting is that it doesn't feel cheesy to me, even though, you know, many brands try to do the same thing, and it feels very cheesy and just a little bit kitsch. And like, I don't know, for this show, it didn't feel like it was.
I have a question. Would you automatically associate Dua Lipa with the Versace brand if you had to choose, you know, a modern pop star as the face of Versace? Would you
Yeah.
think of Dua Lipa?
I felt like she was quite machino to me.
Okay.
For me, if I was going to associate her with a brand.
I think, did she wear the Camp Met Gala? Was she in Moschino?
By the way, I say machino.
Moschino, Versace, face, let's say it however we want.
I say it the Camden way.
The Camden way. I think we're just getting.
Oh yeah.
No, she wore Versace. Okay, she wore Versace. So she's already had
A moment.
an association.
I would say she comes across as a Versace girl ultimately, because the way she has been partnering up with Versace and the associations she had with the brand, prior to the fall winter campaign, I think she had already been dressed in Versace previously. So it sort of made sense for her to just continue of that. And something which I wanted to actually mention in terms of young persons and the way people associate Versace with, younger stars, we have to bear in mind that just a week ago, or slightly over a week ago, at the Met Gala, Versace also dressed Lil Nas.
Yes.
With the sort of triple suit. Yes.
He fits very well to the brand.
Which was also a tremendous moment for Versace as well.
What did you think of this spectacle, this 3-in-1 presentation? Because I mean, I wasn't so keen on it, if I'm being honest.
I think it was smart marketing. Ultimately, it was very, very smart. Lil Nas X as Dua Lipa have a tremendous social following across Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, you name it.
I think from a PR and marketing perspective, absolutely, the idea to do a 3-in-1 with one of the hottest pop stars at the moment, of course, makes absolute sense. But in terms of the clothing,
it came across slightly gauche and vulgar in a way.
Just think it maybe came across a bit costumey, and Versace is very kind of treads on that line sometimes, but I think this maybe went a little bit over. And I know it's the Met Gala and it's about show-stopping looks and just going for it, but I was a bit unsure, if I'm honest.
I think with this look, it did come across very costumey, but there's also, I think, treads on what Gianni Versace had previously said, is that she doesn't mind being a tiny bit vulgar.
Yes, who doesn't?
And it is very, I would say, traditional to how Versace is, and it's very sort of at the very core of Versace, where there is always a tiny bit of extra, a tiny bit of gaucheness. That is what Versace is ultimately.
I don't mind the gaudiness. I don't mind the vulgarity. I mean, I'm all for it. Like that's, Versace is one of my biggest favorite brands, but there was something about this presentation and the actual garments that was just a little off the mark for me. Yeah. Okay, and there's another thing I want to touch on. I want to go to Natalie, actually, because obviously you have a background in buying. Are there any pieces from the collection that you think are going to sell like hotcakes? I mean, with your experience, obviously you know what consumers want and how that translates from the catwalk to the stores. Because what I often find is, as a stylist, I've done a pull from Versace and got these amazing elaborate gowns, and then when they're actually on sale, from that collection's on sale, and I look on the website to see what's being offered, it's tremendously watered down.
Yeah.
But to a point where I mean, I know that obviously happens, but I was a little bit shocked at how different the catwalk to the online store pieces were. So maybe you have something to say on that, and maybe any particular pieces, or
I think the suiting in general will probably sell really well, because it's always good to have a whole show look, and being able to sell it as is, especially online. I think, obviously, I think all that little knitwear vest we've seen before, things like that, I guess, sell really well, because you have the logo, but then you also have the trend, and you have just a show look again as well, and it's easy to wear. I think I personally hate the denim, but
really,
yeah, I think that's really, really, like, that didn't fit into the whole collection to me at all. The varsity jacket is one thing, but then the denim is just another thing to me. But I think in general, the suiting and all the monochrome looks, I can see them sell really good.
And the shoes.
Yeah, the shoes, obviously.
I think we discussed the shoes slightly before the call. Those amazing platforms. I mean, what woman wouldn't?
Yeah, they're amazing and relatively easy to walk, which is always a good thing.
Have you tried them yourself?
I haven't, no, but I have a similar shoe.
I mean, they do look relatively comfortable. The chunky.
I like weights on your legs, so you're exercising at the same time as walking.
There you go, a 2-in-1. I mean,
but also the jelly shoes, I have to say, from the runway, I think they will go really well. There were a couple of looks.
The jelly shoes.
Yeah, like jelly and embellished with Versace gold elements. Don't actually know which looks it was, but
yeah, I think it's going to do very well in stores. Does anyone have? I think we're going to close soon, but if anyone has any last thoughts or wants to say anything, does anyone want to sing Dua Lipa in unison? to close,
I get to take a
conversation.
You do it for
me. I really do.
You.
Maybe all on three we can all sing "Let's Get Physical." How about that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Let's get physical. No one did it.
Yes.
I'm not sure if we mentioned, but yeah, Dua Lipa was obviously playing throughout the show. So we were saying that once, you hear a song of hers, it's kind of stuck in your head. So it's stuck in mine, and I'll probably be listening to it in my head for the rest of the day. I guess that's a great way to end, with us all having that song in our head for the rest of the day. So thank you, guys. Thank you to all the panelists and to our show studio audience. Thank you for watching. For more extensive Fashion Week coverage, be sure to visit showstudio.com. Oh my God, I can't even speak. Showstudio.com. And if you're watching via Show Studio's YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. And we will see you next time.